Hey guys, thanks for joining me on another video. Something big in the news. July 19th, CrowdStrike released an update to their software, which caused a disruption or caused an outage of Microsoft hosts, bringing down the systems of many of their clients. Of course, in the news, we hear about these huge companies that they affected. Delta in the airline business. We heard about, financial institutions coming down. We heard about, these big companies, 911 operations going down. But I think there's a big lesson here to be learned. In the insurance and risk management world, we do a lot around cyber. Not just cyber insurance, but also cyber loss control, cyber risk management, preparation revolving around cyber incidents. Now, I want to make something clear, and this is something that comes up all the time. And I'm also going to tell you a story about a client who had a cyber loss and how it can affect you, because our audience is small to medium-sized businesses. And every time we hear about a cyber issue, whether it's a data breach, the situation revolving around CrowdStrike, we hear about big, huge enterprises, big companies. But 43% of all cyber attacks are against small to medium-sized businesses. In fact, 82% of cyber losses come to companies with 1,000 employees or less. So they revolve around companies of 1,000 or less. Why? Well, for one, security measures are not as tight, right? Smaller companies don't have as much security surrounding their systems, so it could be easier to breach. Attackers or the hackers know that there's not going to be as much immediate attention if they are able to hack a smaller company. Also, a lot of cyber attacks or a lot of hackers will get into the smaller companies as a backdoor to infiltrating larger companies that smaller companies are connected with. So it's a really big misnomer to think that although the news reports on companies like Delta having major system outages, that small companies are immune. And we talk to a lot of clients about cyber insurance, and we talk to a lot of clients about cyber preparation, proper security measures, ensuring they have plans of action in case they have a cyber attack against their company. Back about 10 years ago, one of my excellent clients who retired recently has an electrical contracting business in Northern California and became victim of a cyber attack. In fact, it was a ransomware attack. The hacker got into their systems through phishing methods, through email, which unfortunately one of their employees clicked on. This is before a lot of companies started training on realizing what phishing attacks look like, not clicking on certain links, whatever it may be. But the hacker went in from overseas, this was an overseas attack, and froze up all their files. In their business, they did a lot of drawings, a lot of plannings. They had tons of invoicing, order forms, everything they did for their clients. These guys did telecommunications, infrastructure updates. So they did some big projects, and they could not access any of their files, anything in their system, for 3 weeks while they negotiated with the hacker and paid them a ransom to get their files back. Now, unfortunately, our client didn't have cyber insurance, so everything they paid was out of pocket. And they paid a lot of money to get their files back. And they had to, because they had no choice. Literally, they were not able to operate. Now, we're going to review a cyber policy here. I'm going to show it on my screen. And I'm going to show you that in the sense of what goes on in terms of carriers, restricting coverage, they're still broad. Good amount of third-party coverage to protect you against issues that can come from you if a breach affects your clients or other people, and first-party coverage. Now, with the CrowdStrike situation, if you read the news, most analysts, claims analysts, expect that coverage is going to be paid out under business interruption. That means that the companies that had coverage for this type of event, they could not operate. They lost revenue. So they're going to get paid out under business interruption. Now, there's also systems failures coverage, which some analysts believe that some systems failure coverage will come into play. Also, in some cases, there could be some payouts under technology errors and omissions coverage. But for the most part, it's going to come out from business interruption. The payouts are going to come from the business interruption portion of the cyber policy. Analysts think it's going to take some time to go through because cyber insurance language is not standardized. So depending on the carrier or the product that the company's had, it's going to take some time. They expect that total losses from this event, $5.4 billion. About 10 to 20% will be covered by cyber policies. So figure 400 million to about 1.5 billion is expected to be covered from cyber insurance. Now, those are all big, huge numbers. Again, we're talking about big companies, but just think about the impact this had on CrowdStrike, right? I mean, we talk about the companies like Delta and the banks that couldn't operate, but how about CrowdStrike, the company that caused the issue. The company that released an update to their software that brought all these big mega companies down. What about the fact that the big companies, it seems like they had all their eggs in one basket, right? It seems like they weren't really well diversified in their cybersecurity methods, which is, that comes to the forefront here also with any size company. Risk management, loss control, planning, training is huge now, to make sure, because most cyber attacks are caused because people that are working for the organization don't realize that it's, whether it's phishing or funds transfer fraud's a big one, social engineering, ransomware, all that stuff comes into play because people aren't trained well and they're not really paying attention to what's going on. So they click on links, they enter passwords, whatever they may do. They send money to accounts that they shouldn't, they don't verify. So training's big, right? But just think about the losses here are enormous. Now let's talk about, again, our clients are small to medium-sized businesses. We try to educate our clients as much as possible, not just in insurance, but also loss control. But let's talk about some of the insurance agreements on a cyber policy. Let's go over a few of the coverage items and talk about how they could help your business in the event that you sustain an attack. Looking here at this cyber declarations page, this is a pretty standard cyber policy. Took out all the information about the carrier and the insured. But you can see here on the top of the page, you're going to see the third-party coverages. So the liability coverage, on a cyber policy, these insurance agreements are fairly standard. Pretty much see these three on any cyber policy. Some cyber policies are going to have a few more. You notice the self-insured retention on this particular policy is $7,500. This client was able to, felt comfortable retaining a little more of the loss if it does come on them. You notice the retroactive date is full prior acts. So cyber policies in the realm of the liability section are very often written on the claims made policy. So the retroactive date is going to be important because it's the date that the claim is made, that's the carrier that's responsible to pick up the loss, regardless of when the loss took place. So it's going to be important to have all that information in line. But let's take a look more. And again, these third-party coverages, this is liability created to others. So privacy and security liability, media and content liability, and fines, regulatory, and defense liability. So those are going to be issues that if you have a third party come against you for any losses they sustained because of a cyber attack or a breach or any issue related to your business, you're going to have your liability coverage there under the third party section. Let's move down to the first party section. And this is the section where, besides CrowdStrike, which is they're going to have some third-party issues, obviously. But besides CrowdStrike, the other companies that sustain losses, this is the section of the policy where they're going to see their claims be paid most. So if you look on this page, here's a few coverages to keep in mind. The coverage security breach and notification coverage is huge. If you have a security breach against your company, and regardless of whether you find that people had their credit card information stolen or their social security information, whatever it may be, you have to notify everybody, all of your clients in the system that you suffered the breach of the breach. And that costs a lot of money. If they have their credit card stolen, you have to replace all their credit cards, so you have to pay for that. If they have their social security information stolen, you have to pay for them to have credit monitoring on their account for a number of years. So all this stuff adds up. First party coverage is going to be really important. The next item you'll see down there is systems restoration. A lot of times companies get breached, they get hacked, their systems go down, destroys their hardware. You have to replace all that systems, right? You have to remediate those systems. People have to come in and look to see what was damaged, how much of the attack was infiltrated your system, where in the system, were files damaged. All that's going to cost money, and under the first party coverage under cyber policy, this is what pays for that. I mentioned this before, but you'll also notice fund transfer fraud coverage on the policy. This happens way more often than people think, where somebody acts as their vendor or their partner and they send an invoice and instructions to wire funds to a certain account, and it turns out that it wasn't the person that they thought it was. So now they're sending money a lot of times to overseas accounts where they can't get that money back. It's gone. They sustain a big loss. We've seen it happen to clients a couple of times. Now, a lot of these policies, and it's important to know, a lot of the policies require double verification. So if you get an email from somebody requesting money be sent, or an invoice that requires you to transfer wire money elsewhere, that you make a phone call to verify that that person was indeed who they said they were. So this is another part of that first party policy. And finally, I want to point out the coverage that we talked about relating to the CrowdStrike incident is the business income and extra expense coverage. You have a disruption in your business because of an attack. because of a cyber attack or because of an issue. This is the coverage that will replace your lost revenue when you're not operating. This is the coverage that comes into play here that analysts say will be paid out from on the CrowdStrike incident for the companies that suffered losses because they could not operate. Business income and extra expense coverage, really, really an important part of any cyber liability coverage or program. So again, the CrowdStrike incident, a crazy situation. Most people have heard about it in the news. Can't imagine how it's going to affect them as a business. I'm sure additional protocols are going to be put in place by the companies that sustain loss because of them doing business with CrowdStrike. Potentially not having as much diversification within their cyber portfolio and their security portfolio that they should have had. If you have any questions about cyber insurance, if you have any questions about safety prevention, loss control, or risk management revolving around your systems or your cyber security, let us know. We're happy to help. We have all types of information that can help you. We have cyber incident response plans that we build for our clients. We help clients in conjunction with a lot of their cyber programs, with training, with systems that monitor their accounts and their systems and their machines. So a lot of great stuff out there right now to help businesses avoid these types of losses. Sometimes, unfortunately, unavoidable, like in the CrowdStrike situation. And don't think that if you're a small to medium-sized business, that this can't happen to you. Lots of small and medium-sized businesses become victim. It can really hurt. In fact, it can bankrupt a company very quickly. So if you want to talk about any cyber forms, if you want to look at a sample policy, we have tons of them. We can show you. The one that I showed today is not as robust, not as comprehensive as some, and it's more robust and more comprehensive than others. I think something that's really important is to understand that an endorsement, a cyber endorsement on your business owner policy, is not going to provide the same level of coverage that you see on a standalone cyber policy like the one that I showed you today. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to reach out here on my YouTube channel, or you can call me directly, 858-384-1507. You can text me there too. I respond to my texts, or email hello@foagency.com to learn a little more about how we can help. Thanks again for watching today. Remember, give me a thumbs up if you like my video. Subscribe to my channel. Hit the little notification bell so that you're made aware of any future videos that I may release. Thanks again for your time. I hope everyone's staying well. See you on another video very soon. Take care.